Hi everyone. Welcome to the second episode of the Zicast. I am your host Ryan Ziaks, joined by a woman of many titles, Grace Doyle.
Hi.
I'd also like to shout out Casey McNichol for making sure that our operation is running smoothly. So kind of to give a recap of what this is all about, I just have my friends on, and it's just a way for me to get to know them on a deeper level because people, at least I find that people are always more interesting than they think they are, and everybody has a story. So with that all said, Grace, let's get into it. So Grace, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'll give you my orientation rundown. So my name is Grace Doyle. I am a 3+1 film, television, and media arts major. I'm in my third year of undergrad, which basically means I'm going to graduate this spring because it is a 3+1. And I'm from Massachusetts. I'm from a town called Dedham, which is like 25 minutes out of Boston if you take the train. And yeah.
And we both go to Quinnipiac University.
Yeah, that's a little kind of important to recognize, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And would you mind telling us your positions at Quinnipiac and the things that you're involved in?
Oh yeah.
Just like a brief overview.
Right.
Before we get into them more in depth.
Definitely. So I am an associate producer for Q30, which is our on-campus television broadcast station. I am also a member of the Student Artists League, as well as Quinnipiac Film Society. What else is there?
Hashtag that.
Yeah, hashtag that. So through Q30, I'm an AP for hashtag that, which is the entertainment news broadcast. And then I also just kind of bounce around, like, throughout the School of Comm. I do a lot of just random stuff for them. And I also work in the gym. And I also work for marketing. I have a lot of jobs. So many jobs.
Like I said, woman of many titles. One thing you didn't mention was the fact that you're the ambassador for QUNLA.
Yes.
Which is our first topic, and it's quite a big one because it's really how we met, because I was put in contact with you about this. So would you mind explaining your role as ambassador to QUNLA and talk about your experience there?
Yeah, so QUNLA is a program through Quinnipiac University where a group of students can apply for internships out in Los Angeles, and if they are selected to participate in an internship, we are all flown out to LA for a semester. So just about 12 weeks. We end a little bit earlier in the semester, depending on where you are from, or depending on which semester you go with. So if you're in the actual school year, so like the fall semester or the spring semester, you go out for 12 weeks. If you are in the summer program, you go out for 10 weeks. And that essentially, you just learn about the culture in LA, how the media industry is different out west versus east, because of course Quinnipiac is located in between New York and Boston. So we have a lot of students from both of those areas coming this like middle ground. And it's a super cool experience. I went out this past spring, so I was there from January to April, and it was awesome. I had 2 internships. One was film-based. I was an assistant editor for a documentary company, and then I was also working for the Bob Marley family, which I only took that internship just because it had like the Bob Marley name associated with it, and I'm like, I have to do this. And it was super cool. And now I am the ambassador. So our program director, Andreas, he is a podcast producer for the Bad Friends podcast out in LA. He asked me to, talk to students back here and try to get them interested in the program so we can have it rotating. But yeah.
Yes, and that certainly helped me because Andres put me in contact with you, and that's how we met. And it's great that you mentioned the Bad Friends podcast because you actually made an appearance on there, if I remember correctly.
I did.
Do you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about Bad Friends before coming out here. And for those who aren't aware, Bad Friends is a podcast. It's a comedy podcast with Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee. And obviously Bobby Lee is a pretty big comedian. I didn't know any of this. But he was on Mad TV, and he's been in the industry for such a while now that he's like a bigger name. So we all went to a taping of the podcast, because that's what Andres does with his students, usually within the first week, just to get us like situated. It's just a fun outing. He likes to plan things like once a week, just sightseeing, a lot of it, but also going to different museums, which are, you know, about the industry. So we went to the Grammys Museum, the Oscars Museum, stuff like that. So he took us to the taping of a Bad Friends episode, and Santino walks in, and he just starts, like, throwing stuff at us. He has, like, a big thing of Bad Friends merch. So he, like, throwing sweatshirts and T-shirts. And then he's like, okay, here, take this. And it's just, like, a book. It's, like, a pamphlet about, like, addiction recovery. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. And he's like, when I tell you to come in, you come in and you give that to Bobby. Because it was his sober anniversary. Again, didn't know any of this. So he was like, okay, Grace, you can come in. So I actually sat down. I was next to, I think her name's Rudy Jules. She's one of the people on Bad Friends. And, you know, we had like a short conversation, a lot of back and forth. They were the funniest people alive. Bobby Lee is just hilarious. And he's such a good guy, too, because afterwards, after the taping, they brought us all in. We were allowed to ask questions, kind of talk to both of them, take pictures. And it was a super cool experience. And then they came back here to Quinnipiac over the summer. So it was cool to see them all again.
Awesome. Wow. And I know Bobby Lee from Magnum PI.
Yeah.
Actually on the TV show. And that's incredible. And like I said, I didn't know much about Bad Friends either, but upon learning about their kind of influence here, that was great. And do you mind telling us a bit about Andres himself?
Yeah, he is just the coolest person alive. So most people know him by his stage name, which is Fancy B. So after that taping and after the podcast or the video went live, I got like 50 Instagram DMs from like my friends, and then also just random people that are like, you know Fancy B? Why were you on this podcast? And actually my friend's boyfriend just called me. Or she called me, and her boyfriend was on the phone. She's like, wait, he goes, wait, give me the phone. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, I saw you on the Bad Friends podcast. He's like, you're on that podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I was on it once. And he's like, yeah, I was just watching it. And then I'm like, this girl looks familiar. And he realized it was me. And so I got a bunch of DMs that are like, how do I get into Fancy's class? Why do you know Fancy? How can I meet Fancy? And I was like, it's through school. I can't tell you. But he is, yeah, the sweetest person I've ever met. He is... Andreas is like, so we actually all ended up calling him Pops by the end of the 16 weeks or the 12 weeks, because he kind of grew to be like a father figure for all of us, because there were 16 of us who went out, and we all became super close. Like, we were all like, you know, a family, and we're like, well, he's Pops. And he also had a baby when we were all out in LA, and she's the cutest thing ever. So we were like, oh my God, now you're like really a Pops. So it just worked out. And he's so easy to talk to. He's such a great guy, and he's so hilarious. He's such like a funny person, and he knows everything about the industry. So he's a great contact to have, and I just love talking to him. Sometimes I'll just hit him up, be like, Andres, how are you? How's the baby? When are you coming back here? When can I come visit you in LA? But yeah,
definitely, and very accomplished as a filmmaker,
yeah.
And of course with the his kind of say allegiance with the Bad Friends podcast, which is paid many dividends. And kind of on that same note, what sort of tips would you give students who want to go out to LA, such as myself?
Yeah, I would say it's never too early to apply for internships. I remember this time last year, I was still like just cranking them out. It was like once a day, or every day I would try to get like one or two just sent off. And it is challenging, and it does become a little disheartening, especially when you don't hear back right away. There were so many internships that I was either rejected from, or I just was ghosted. Like, there was one that I thought was a lead because I was going back and forth in emails, and this woman's like, oh, I'll put you in contact with my director, and then it was like radio silence. But I'm a big believer in like, whatever happens, happens, and everything happens for a reason, which is why, you know, the two internships that I was a part of, it was like the best experience. But I think, as long as you're working hard, and there's also no commitment. If you're applying for internships, you can always say no. And I think a lot of people get scared everyone that I've talked to like this semester has been like, well, I'm worried that if I accept an internship and then I decide I'm not going to LA, like what will that do to me? Like what will happen? Like you don't owe anyone anything.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, when you are accepted and when you're ready to go to LA, it's easier said than done, but don't be afraid, because you have to be very aware of your surroundings, but LA is just like any other big city. Like just be aware of where you're walking, where you're going, who you're with, and everything that you have on you, because, you know, things do happen, but if you're not from a city, it is a big adjustment, but know your resources, know the people that you have with you, and kind of hold them close. You know, it's not as dangerous as it's made out to be. A little, you know, if you're going out with Q in LA, be aware, like, we are 2 or 3 blocks from Skid Row, but we're in a very safe hotel or like apartment complex, and you're surrounded by the people you went out with. Andreas, he's always there if anything happens, and just keep communication with those people, you know. And I think a lot of people are afraid because they haven't gone out to a big city and they haven't lived in the city yet. And it's very different than being on campus, because we're in such like a close-knit campus in the middle of nowhere, Connecticut. But I would say, you know, take every opportunity you can to try new things, because there are so many opportunities once you're in LA to take part of, or take part in. And I would just say, even if it's something that doesn't seem like it applies to you, like if it's something you're not interested in all, give it a chance. You might find out that you really love it. Yeah.
And that's why it's great to have like you were talking about, like friends you trust from school, and of course Andres, who we're speaking so highly of, and that can help make that adjustment smoother.
Yeah, you're not alone out there. It may feel like it. It does feel, you know, you get to that point halfway through the semester where you're like, oh, I just want to see my family. I want to see my dog. It does feel, you know, you're in this little apartment complex. And it can get isolating, but as long as you know your resources and you know who's with you, you're all going through the same thing. Even if you're not saying it to each other, you're all feeling it. There's one point in the semester where everyone, it's like being here. You're just like, oh, I want to go home so bad. In LA, it feels a little more difficult because it's not like you can't just hop on a plane and go home for the weekend. But, you know, everyone's feeling the same thing. Everyone's going through it at the same time. So you just have to make the most of it and take care of yourself while you're out there.
Definitely. And it just sounds like such a great opportunity for growth and to, like you said, to kind of expand your horizons. So kind of like the last question I have on this topic is, outside of like appearing on Bad Friends, do you have any other special experiences that you had there?
Oh, yeah. So many. My first week, it just so happened that when I was working for Tough Gong, which is it's technically Ziggy Marley's production company, but it was founded by Bob. Bob founded Tough Gong International, I think. And then Tough Gong Worldwide Ziggy is the president of that company. Ziggy's his son. And we do a lot for, my job out there was, you know, they were working on the biopic, which is coming out next spring. And I'm so excited for that because I was like, I got to kind of see the process of that. So I was like freaking out about that. But we got to do a lot of editing, old footage, old music videos, and then just going through, we were in like this big warehouse and it was just like full of Marley family merchandise and memorabilia. So that was really cool. Like Ziggy's whole like tour setup was just in one corner, so all his guitars and drums and stuff. So that was really cool just for me to see. And then our first week out there, they were actually opening the Bob Marley Museum in West Hollywood. So it was like a premiere. We were invited. I got a media pass so I could, you know, take pictures because I was doing a lot of their marketing and PR stuff. And that was super cool. Skip Marley, again, another son, did a concert just out on the green in like the mall in West Hollywood. So that was a super cool experience for me. And that's also like where I met my bosses. And then I saw a bunch of we met Victoria Justice out there, which is like all of my little cousins who are still in the like Nickelodeon era. They were like, "You met Victoria's," and I'm like, "I know."
Nostalgia strike.
Yeah, right. I was standing right next to her, and I was like, "I need to say something to her." And she was wearing this awesome fur coat, and I'm like, "I like your jacket." And she's like, "Thanks." And then my friend who was out interning with me, she actually parked right next to us in the garage, and he's like, "You're Victoria's." And I'm like, "Wow, you totally just ruined me trying to be subtle."
Yeah.
But yeah, that was super cool. What else? And then we just did a bunch of stuff as a group. We went to a Dodgers game, which was really cool. We also went to Disneyland for a day. That was one of the best experiences because it was just like just a bunch of college kids running around Disneyland is like the funniest thing to see. Yeah, we hit like every single ride. I don't know how we did it, but we did the Incredibles coaster like 3 times. But yeah, it was just overall just like the most fun experience. I can't wait to get back out there.
Definitely. Have any favorite rides?
Favorite rides. I mean, like nostalgia wise, I'm such a Haunted Mansion person. Like I like all the scary stuff. And I've been to Disney World. I went a few times when I was younger, and I always loved the Tower of Terror. And then in Disneyland, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think that one might have been my favorite because that one was just like it's the same ride, but it's so fun. And seeing all my friends' reactions, my friend Taylor had never gone before. She didn't know any of the rides. So first when we went on Splash Mountain, we're like, "Oh, Taylor, you have to take the front because you're the smallest." And she's like, "Okay." And then we get off the ride and she's like drenched. And then, yeah, during Tower of Terror, she's like, "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I don't like. Why are we strapped in?" And then we go up and she's like screaming her head off. But yeah,
you really got her.
Oh yeah. The whole day we were just like, "Oh, Taylor, you have to do this," and she would just go with it because that's how she is. She's very just like, "Okay, sure," but you know.
Yep. I've always been a great movie ride guy myself, as one could guess. I always go to the Disney World in Florida.
Yeah.
It's not there anymore. Is it there?
Oh, it is. Which one?
The Great Movie Ride. Is it there?
I don't think it is.
It's not.
I'm not sure.
Because I think Disney used to have a deal with Turner Classic Movies, if I'm not mistaken, and that's why it was there. But I think the deal is off now, so that's why it's taken out. So that was
right.
So that's been rough for me.
Yeah, but, grieving.
But yeah, it was so great to hear about those experiences, and as someone who also wants to do that, that's just so great to hear. And you talked about being involved with Bob Marley's family, and of course, I'm excited for the biopic as well. And
I just know for a fact like I'm gonna be like, and I'm not a very emotional person. I never cry at movies, but I know for a fact just like seeing that and like having been so close to it, I'm gonna be like, oh my gosh, like
yeah, and he's forever an icon. And to kind of continue to stay on that topic of music, you are also Quinnipiac's music beat reporter.
I am.
And do you mind talking a bit about your work as that? Because you've getting a lot of acclaim recently.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, that's something so Q30 has beat reporters for pretty much all of their like broadcast news shows. So, you know, we have sports beat reporters who write articles about all of the on-campus D1 athletics. We also have news beat reporters who report on not only campus news and SGA, like government news, but also local Hamden news. So we just had an election that we're covering. And then entertainment has 4 beat reporters. One is film, television, music, and industry. So I started out as a television beat reporter, and I pretty much got nothing done. That was my freshman year. And then I eventually moved up because I knew for a fact, like, I only want to talk about music. That's my favorite subject. That's all I want to do. So when I got that position, you know, I'm so happy with it. So I essentially I write reviews about articles. I write reviews about albums and different songs that come out. I have like a whole list in my phone of things that I need to get out this week. But I've also been trying to push the beat reporters to do more interviews, and our executive producers and our entertainment director, Ryan, he's been really pushing that as well. So actually, while I was out in LA, I had the chance to go down to Long Beach and see this show. It's in a tiny little dive bar called Alex's Bar, and it was a Skunk Records reunion. And this is where I'm going to go off on a tangent because again, I have too much knowledge about random music.
Don't worry about it.
So Skunk Records is they were founded in the 90s, and one of the first bands they signed was Sublime. So Sublime is known for like Santeria, Doin' Time. The lead singer of Sublime, his name is Bradley Nowell. He passed away from an overdose right before Sublime made it big. So it was kind of like a posthumous claim to fame, I guess. So they signed Brad and Sublime, and then they had a few other bands under that. So the guys from Sublime, after the fact, they're like, we don't want to tour without Brad, so they actually made their own band called Long Beach Dub All Stars. And with that band, they just take in like random musicians from Long Beach that they know of, and it's always like a rotating set. So, you know, sometimes they have just like this guy Raz One playing with them. Sometimes they have Opie Ortiz playing with them. So they haven't done tours in a while, and Skunk Records kind of dissolved after the death of Brad. Now Brad's son, his name's Jacob. He is a few years older than us. He has his own band called Jacob's Castle, and it's a newer band. And he actually played the show in Long Beach in Alex's bar, where his dad and all of he calls them his uncles, they all used to play. So he did a show with Long Beach Dub All Stars. He also did a show with Pero Bravo. It was all the same show. So it was Pero Bravo, Long Beach Dub All Stars, Jacob's Castle, and then a few other Long Beach native bands. And Jacob, just to begin, like when I walked in, he was just hanging out at the bar. So I got to talking to him, and I was like, oh, I like your stuff. He had an old band called Law that I used to listen to. So we just got to talking, and he's, you know, close to us. He's like 27 or 28 now. So we just, you know, hit it off, started talking. And then he ended up touring again with Long Beach, doing an East Coast tour. So I got to catch them in New Hampshire. So again, started talking to him, and he's like, oh, I remember you were in Long Beach. Again, like just keeping that connection. And then I decided over the summer to email his management, just be like, hey, I don't know if you're interested, but we could do an interview. I'm a beat reporter. I do a bunch of music stuff. So we actually got that going. And then this semester we were able to do an interview for Q30. So that is kind of my biggest accomplishment as a beat reporter. And I really hope to do more stuff like that. There are a few gigs coming around the area in the next semester that I really want to get. My goal is to get an in-person interview using the Q30 set. I don't know how that's going to go, but there are a few bands in mind that I'm like, if I can just get them in for an afternoon, hit an interview, like, you know. But yeah, it's been so awesome. I love Q30. I've so many good things to say about it. It would take me all day. But yeah, doing music stuff is really where my passion is. But yeah.
That's a fantastic goal that you're manifesting here on the Zicast.
I know, like speaking it into existence,
Exactly.
you know?
And I share that mutual love for Q30 as well. And you can find that article on Q30.com, right?
Yeah, Q30tv.com. Yeah, Casey's giving me the nod. I get it wrong every single time. But yeah, you've done so much with Q30. I say it to my roommates all the time because now they know you because they're all involved. And I'm like, Ryan has done so much in like the first 3 months of being here because you're involved with hashtag. You're a cast member on Q Tonight, which is huge. Like that's, you know, something not many people accomplish, especially within their first year. And then you do stuff for like Barnacle and QFS.
Yes.
But, yeah, some very cool stuff.
Yeah, it was my goal when coming here to get more involved, or to get, like I said, more involved and kind of just do whatever I can and continue to improve and learn new things. And that's and Q30 has provided me with a lot of opportunities to do that. So, and on a kind of similar note of music, what kind of music do you like?
Oh,
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, this is like my favorite question because I really do. I feel like it's such like a basic answer to be like, I listen to everything, but I try to listen to as much as I can. I think you can kind of get the sense from me talking about Bob Marley so much that like that's really where my interest lies, is in like the 60s and 70s. Like I'm wearing my Grateful Dead sweatpants because I'm a huge Deadhead, which is, you know, again, a band that I could talk about forever. And then I also just talked your ear off about the Beatles right before the show. So again, 60s, 70s, that's really my niche. But also, Sublime and Long Beach, that's all late 90s, the whole ska reggae revival. And then, there are so many cool bands out right now. I'm really into rock, so I'm super into Greta Van Fleet, and this band called Dirty Honey just came out with a new record, which is awesome. I was listening to it on my way here. So I really do. Like, I listen to anything. If you give me a piece of music and you're like, I want you to listen to this, chances are I will, and I'll probably like it. There's not a lot of music that I'm, like, totally turned off by. But, yeah.
Because you are a very 60s, 70s person. When I first met you, you had the big 70s glasses.
I have them on with me, yeah.
Nice. And then, of course, I think you dressed up as Sharon Tate from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to be Penny Lane from Almost Famous. That was my first choice. And then I was like, I don't really have anything. I wanted to do something a little more iconic. And then I'm like, well, this is a different film that I also really like, set in the 60s. I have the stuff for it. I'm like, why not just do Sharon Tate? It was because I had the boots, and I'm like, this would work.
Yes.
But yeah.
It was a very cool vibe.
Thank you. I try. That's like that. Those are Sharon Tate, Penny Lane, Janis Joplin. Like, I take a lot of inspiration from, characters from that time. Obviously, Penny Lane isn't a real person, but also musicians. Janis is like my favorite. I'm trying to think who else. Stevie Nicks is a big one. She's a little more 70s, I kind of like, I say like Janis is the sun and Stevie's the moon, because Janis is so like bright and vibrant and out there, and Stevie's a little more reserved and dark and that kind of whimsy goth thing. But yeah, I like them both.
Now I have a ton of artists to look up.
Oh yeah. If you ever have any sort of interest in like that one specific time period, I got you.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to get into music on a deeper level than mainstream. Yeah. Kind of like how I am with films, because like how Grace is the music beat reporter, I'm the film beat reporter. So
yeah.
That is an extra incentive to kind of go deeper into that. So kind of on that similar note, I asked you what music you like. What music would you like to get into? Kind of genres you like to get
That's
into?
A good question. I feel like there's so much in every genre that I like to dip my toe into like everything. Even I feel like so many people are like, oh, I like everything but country. But I think there are so many really cool country musicians that are not only from decades past. I grew up listening to outlaw country, so again, 70s. But, I grew up on Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, stuff from that era. But there are so many cool bands out right now. There's kind of this outlaw country revival happening, which is really cool, with bands like Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. I just saw them in concert. I actually just saw Nathaniel Rateliff like a week ago, and he's killer. Who else? Tyler Childers is a big one. Zach Bryan is obviously like topping charts everywhere. So that's kind of a genre that I don't know too much about, but what I hear, I do enjoy. But again, like every genre, I'm not going to say no to listening to anything. If someone's like, I will play smooth jazz for 2 hours straight, I'm like, sure, put me on. Like, I'll listen to it. But yeah. Yeah.
And country music as a whole appears to kind of be on the rise, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, I'm not really in the know, but just in general, it seems to be more popular.
Country music is such an interesting industry, the country industry, because there are so many, like, pros and cons to Nashville running the scene. I think Nashville is a really, really cool place. But, it kind of goes through this wave every few decades of, like, the industry focuses on, like, commercialization of their music and like selling records, and then there's kind of this uprising from the artists that's like, well, we're gonna do the opposite and we're gonna make our own stuff, and that's where the outlaw thing came from, because it was a conflict within Nashville. It was all these artists who weren't getting commercial play, that were not wanting to make songs just to sell and to make money, and they were like, we want to talk about the common folk, they want to talk about the cool blue collar people, and we want to make music for that. So, Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, they all did that. And now that's also kind of coming back around because in the past, since I think 2001 is where it really started, everything has been very commercial. And also, there's been this cookie cutter way of making country music. You hear, the whole, drinking beer and my girl and my truck, and it's there's kind of that uprising happening again with all of these smaller musicians being like, well, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to play into that. I want to make something that's true to me and true to the people that I surround myself with. Tyler Childers is from Appalachia, and he makes music that really is centered in bluegrass roots from what he grew up on, and he also talks a lot about conflicts that only people living in Appalachia do face. But it's interesting. It's really cool once you deep dive into it. There's a lot of stuff within that industry itself. It's just not surface level, but yeah.
Fascinating. This podcast really is like a box of chocolates. I never know what I'm gonna get.
Yeah, exactly.
I did not expect to have this discussion, but this is very, very interesting. I never really thought about the country industry this deeply.
Yeah, I mean, again, music is people have to stop me because I will talk about music forever. That's the one thing that I'm okay, tell me when I've been talking for 40 minutes straight, because I love to talk, but once you get me started on music, it just doesn't stop.
Yeah. Well, you're in luck because I'm about to stop you.
Good. Okay.
So, I wanted to ask you, so we're both involved with #that, which is well, I'll let you explain it because you could probably explain it better than me, but kind of, do you mind talking about your role in that and kind of the show as a whole?
Yeah, so I'm an associate producer on that. So #that, like I mentioned, is the entertainment news show that we have on campus. I got involved. I'll actually tell you, it's kind of funny. Ari Menez is the one that got me introduced to Q30 as a whole, specifically #. He was never on it. He was in Q Tonight at the time, and now he's, not. We'll talk about him later, I'm sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was actually during Sundance. We were driving to the main part of town. We were on a bus, and Ari's sitting next to me, and he's like, you should join Q30. And I'm like, okay. So I got involved with that. I was drawn to # because, again, I'm in the entertainment industry. I'm not, I'm not into sports. They're cool. They're fun. I like going to the hockey games, but I couldn't tell you what's going on during them. But entertainment is really where, my passion lies. So I'm like, I'll just sit in on an entertainment show. I watched, sitting behind the green screen. I was just listening in. And then the next episode, I'm like, can I host? So that was a real quick jump. And it was just, they welcomed me in with open arms. Lizzie Polito was already there. And then, Alex was involved with it, as were a few people from my year. And I just fell in love with it. And then, I was doing that again last year. I went to LA, had to take a break from it because I can't really host or do anything for a live show when I'm not live. But coming back, I'm like, I do want to get more involved with this show because it's something that has brought me so much joy in the past few years. So I applied for an associate producer position, and I'm really glad I accepted the position. We have a great crew. So our two executive producers who kind of run the entire show is Liz and Alex. And, of course, I'm close to both of them already. And then we have our APs, so MKF, who I knew previously, Marcus, who I worked with, and then I didn't know Sam Shaw, but as soon as I met her, I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to be, best friend. I love Sam. And we work so well together. We all go in a little bit early on Monday nights, and we just crank out graphics, do all our stuff prior, get all ready for the show, and then we're all sitting in on the show. Some of us have positions. Otherwise, we're just kind of floating around helping people. And it's something I'm so happy that I'm a part of it. I love # specifically. I like Q30. I love Q30, but # is it's such a family too, because we were saying at the beginning of the year, people will come in to # and stay for 3 weeks, and then you won't see them for 2 months, and then they'll come back. So it's we always have a rotating group coming in. It's never the same people. If you go into one show in September and then come back in November, it's going to be a totally different crew. But whether you're in it for one show or you're in it each show every semester, you know, you're a part of that family, and we're always gonna welcome you back.
Mm-hmm.
But it is such a cool vibe in there, and it's also very like, not low key, but the vibes in Hashtag are very different than every other show. Because I've been to newscasts, and you know, I hosted a Q Tonight episode, but it's like Hashtag itself. It's like you go in, there's music cranking. Alex is always running around doing something, but we're all like laughing, joking with each other, and it's I love it. It's like I look forward to Monday nights so much.
I second that, and that's what I was preparing to say, that this just is such a fun environment. It is so laid back, and it's such great, easy experience, like being in front of and behind the camera.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's like, I would say there's no stakes, but there's not as much pressure, it feels like. Even being involved with Q Tonight, it's an absolute blast, but it can feel very professional from the standpoint. It's like, can be very high pressure being in the position, where with Hashtag, it's very kind of easy to do whatever you really want to do. And it's a great way to like filming a package is a great learning experience. Being on air is a great learning experience, and there's always kind of something new with it. Yeah. So thank you for kind of introducing me to that right away. And it's kind of, did you have anything else to add about Hashtag?
I mean, I just credit that vibe to Liz and Alex's leadership, because they are the ones that really like drive the ship, you know. And I think they work really hard to make it not only a professional environment where you can create content that you can put in your portfolio, or if you're hosting every few weeks, you can create a pretty solid reel if that's something you want to do. But they also make it like a really inviting and engaging environment. That's really what drew me to it from like the EPs in the past, was like, it's so inviting. They're like, oh, you've never done this before? You don't know how to edit? That's completely fine. Have you ever opened up Premiere? No? Cool. We'll walk you through it. I just remember, you might not know her, but Bella Foley, she was an EP my first year. She's a grad student now. She's always around. But I remember my first package I ever made. I'm like, Bella, I don't know how to edit anything, and I'm so nervous. And she's like, oh, okay, don't worry. Just come into the media suite. And she walked me through it, and now, like, I love editing. That's all I want to do is make packages. So the fact that now I can take what she taught me and apply it to other people is just, it's just a cool experience, you know?
Definitely. And everybody's been welcoming to me, but they're especially welcoming, and and very trusting, and kind of giving you assignments and kind of letting you do your thing. And
they have a lot of trust in our people, which I love, because I think that also just adds to the family aspect of it, because it's not like, they're not like, okay, you have to make a package, but you have to hit A, B, and C. It's like, yeah, I trust you. I know you're going to do well. If you need help, call one of the APs or the EPs, and you got it, you know? They're very, very cool people.
And it's like an everybody club.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's involved in it. Like, we get hosts from all over. We get people working in it from all over. We get a lot of Q Tonight people now invading.
Marcus is like, he's not even in the School of Comm. He's, I think, I want to say game design, but not. He is game design. Yeah, he's game design.
Like the Russos.
Yeah.
They're game design as well.
Yeah. Which is so funny to me, because I've known of the Russos since freshman year, because we lived on the same floor. I think I told them this. I forget. But I always just knew them as like, oh, the twins, because I would just see the twins walking around. And then all of a sudden this year, I'm like, you're not the twins, you're James and Anthony. You're the Russo. Like, it's just funny to see, like, how collaborative it actually becomes, because it's like, you see these people around campus and you have nothing to do with them. Your paths never cross. And then all of a sudden Hashtag brings you together. Like, what do MKF and I have in common besides being a film major and being from, like, similar areas of Massachusetts? But now I see him every Monday night, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what happened to me this week. And we just like, Liz takes pictures of us all the time. She's like, you're having your gossip sesh again. And I'm like, I know. Yes, but yeah.
Like you said, one big happy family.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to kind of speak of another one of your families, you're a part of SAL.
I am.
Do you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yeah. So SAL is Student Artist League. Such a fun club to be a part of. So I am a part of the inaugural e-board. So I am the vice president of media and publications for them. And it's very small, because this is only our second year being like a club. Or an organization, I should say. And it's just it's a very interesting organization to be a part of. I've never been a part of like an inaugural board before. But our president, Sean Fermontes, put it together last year, and he was like, we need more representation of the arts on campus because we have so many student artists, people who are interested in film and music and, producing, creating art. But there's no real space for us other than organizations like Q30 or QFS, which speak to only one specific type of art. So he's like, I want to create a space where all artists are welcome and we push for more representation on campus. So that's something I've always been passionate about, always been interested in ever since I was younger. I started out, before I was in film and music, I was into just art itself. I love drawing, I love painting. So I was like, I want to combine all these interests in one place. And Sal has given me the opportunity to do that, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, and the two of us, we did a package on Sal.
We did.
For hashtag that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of blown away when I went to that meeting at just how kind of profound it was in the way it talked about art.
Yeah.
And such a kind of deep passion for it, because we interviewed this, because it was a kind of panel there.
Mm-hmm.
And we interviewed the people that were speaking on it, Sean himself, and those interviews they're just incredible interviews. They were so insightful, and I do really want to get involved with Sal. It's just I don't exactly have the time.
Yeah, it's so tough. It is like, I know for comm students, but students like us especially who are very involved in general, it is tough to make commitment to everything. But that's the beauty of Sal. It's like you can come to a half-hour meeting every Wednesday night. You don't have to go to every meeting, but as long as you're there once a semester, Sean, it's very similar to Q30 in the way that he's like, you're invited, even if you can't come to the meetings. I told you, we're starting up a Sal podcast. And we have 2 first years actually running the podcast because they were like, we can't make it to every meeting, but we're so invested in the arts on campus and we want to do something to, help increase that representation. So we were like, great, come in, join this podcast, come help us. So yeah, that's the beauty. There's so much in every art form that we can get into in that organization. Like we have this week we're doing Songwriters Den. So we have musicians on campus come in for like 4 hours, 3 hours, and they put together an original piece of music. And the last one I was like blown away by it. I still have to edit that video. That should be out soon. But yeah, they put together this whole beautiful piece of music. And they're doing that again. They do that once a month. And it's like, if you couldn't make the first one, come to this one, But it's a very interesting thing to be a part of, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And to kind of bring up another thing that you're a part of, you're also part of the Quinnipiac Film Society.
I am.
Do you mind telling us a bit about that?
That's the first organization I became a part of when I joined Quinnipiac, I guess. That's where I met Ari, who's now one of my best friends. And that's also given me so many opportunities just to enhance my filmmaking skills. It is just like a super cool organization to be a part of in general. It's we get together and we do everything. Yeah, of course you know this, but for people who might not know, everything relating to film. So we don't just like watch movies, which I think is the question that everyone gets at the engagement fair. Ari was telling me, he's like, about 50 freshmen came up to me and is like, is this the movie watching club? And he's like, sure, but also we produce movies and we create short films and mini productions, and you have the chance to go to Sundance, which is like a legit professional film festival out in Utah, which we can get into because I'm sure that might be your next point. Ryan and I are going to Sundance in like 2 months, which is so exciting.
And you really brought up the giant elephant in the room, which was me about to ask you about Sundance. So we're both incredibly excited about that. I wanted to kind of just ask, like, I know you went there before. You can explain that experience and just kind of explain it as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I went to Sundance in 2022. I was so excited. Like, it was you know, my first experience ever kind of going away from home for a while. You know, because Connecticut, I can get there and back. I can get home and back in like 2 hours. But I was like, I need to go see this film festival. I've never been to one before, and it's something I'm interested in. And, you know, I've never been to Utah. I don't know what to expect. So we spend the whole semester preparing for our trip, and we're doing all these donations and fundraising and all that stuff. And then about 2 weeks before the trip, so the first week in January, we all get an email that's like, so because of COVID, we are going to cancel the in-person festival. It's all going to be virtual. So I just remember waking up that day, and it was just like, because everything came out that morning, and I'm like, what is going on? Just reading my texts. About like 30 people dropped out. It was crazy. Everyone's like, well, I just don't want to go if there's no festival. So we were like scrambling to get a group together, and then we already had the down payment on the house that we were renting. So we were like, we can't just, you know, lose all this money. So our president at the time, his name was Ben. He's the best. He was like, okay, well, we're still going to get a group to go out there. He's like, we're still going to go out. We're going to have a great time. We're going to explore Park City. And we got a pass, and we all watched the movies virtually. We had like a big projector on one of the walls, and we took down all the like paintings and stuff in one of the houses, and we projected movies on that every day. And it was really like, that's probably one of my favorite memories from freshman year, because I went out knowing essentially no one. I went out with my roommate, and I knew like maybe 4 other people in the club. And it's going to make me sound terrible when I say this, but I spent no time with them. Like, I did not spend, there were probably 6 freshmen that went out, and I spent all my time with the upperclassmen, and I had a blast. You know, I spent every day with Ari, because I was like, I didn't know him going in. And then maybe 3 days into the festival, I remember he pulled me aside, and he's like, if anyone tries to hurt you, let me know, because I will kill them. And I'm like, okay, what's your last name again? Like,
He's a real one, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and now look at it. Like, Ari and I are like this. I go to his house like once a week. Yeah, and it's just, you know, I made so many, like, it was like a core memory. And I'm such like a mountain person. Like, I love the mountains. That's why I came here, because I'm staring at Sleeping Giant right now. You know, I love hiking. I love just being outdoors in nature. And when you're driving through Sundance, you'll know in a few months, as soon as you get off the plane, you're like landlocked, and the mountains are so much bigger than you can ever imagine. And I just remember driving through, we were on a bus driving from Salt Lake to Park City, and I was just staring out the window the whole time, and I'm like, this is the most beautiful, surreal experience I've ever had. And it was so cool. We went sledding. We walked around, like, the main part of town. A few of us went skiing. I didn't, because I can't ski. But it looked really cool. And it was a great week. And now I'm so excited to go out again this year, because the festival will actually be up and running, knock on wood. But yeah, I actually can't wait. The people who went last year said it was a great experience, because they actually got to be a part of the festival, sit in on interviews, of course, like, screen movies. That's what it's all about. And it really just enhances your experience as a filmmaker, seeing other people succeed in this specific part of the industry. But yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait for January to come around. I can't wait.
And I'm just as excited, and this would be my first time there in Utah, and be able to kind of be around movie culture, if that makes sense, and to see all these, like you said, the filmmakers who are kind of achieving being there.
Yeah.
And then I just can't wait for them to get closer with everybody from QFS, because it really is such an amazing club.
Yeah, it's really, I just remember being like, my first year in QFS, it was like myself, my roommate, Ronnie Donnell, and Michaela. And it's like, and Julia Kuzmenko, I don't know if you know her yet. But it was like, we were the 5 that went out to Utah, And I'm like, you guys are the only people I really know from this club. I don't really, like, I know our president, but I don't know our president. And then after that experience, I came back and I'm like, okay, so now I have all of these new people that I'm, like, best friends with. And it was just, like, Mike Hanley. I did not know him before going out to Sundance. And then 5 days into the festival, we're sitting in a hot tub just, like, talking about, like having a super deep conversation at midnight under the stars. And we're like, yeah, college is so crazy. And, like I just remember getting, like, super into it, having this, like, awesome conversation with Mike. And now I'm like, okay, now we're tight. But,
yeah. And he's as interesting as they come.
Oh my gosh, get him on this podcast.
It's in the works. Trust me.
He's the best. If you want to talk country music, talk to Mike. Like, he knows.
I've seen him sing country music.
Oh yeah. He does a lot of Willie and a lot of Tyler.
Right Rally, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty cool. Good guy.
And I've gotten to know a lot of the QFS people as well, like in the fall production.
Right.
This week, and I spent a lot of hours with them.
Yeah, how was that?
That was incredible, and it's something that I will continue to talk about on here. But it was such a rewarding experience, and it's really like the first real film I've ever been a part of. Like, of course, Quinnipiac Night shoots they're very well done, very well prepared. But this was like with a slate and with countless people working. It's like working on a movie and getting to act like it. Act in it like I was just completely honored and fortunate enough to do. It was just so incredible. It really is a dream come true. And
it's so fun. Yeah, I acted in my first one too, and it was like they let Julia Schnarr direct like as a first year. I think they had a second year directing this one, Finn.
Yes.
They're amazing. Finn is an amazing filmmaker.
Yes.
But yeah, it's always so fun. I love being a part of the productions. I wish I could have done it this fall, but come springtime, it's like, you know.
But I just can't wait to see how it turns out. We're actually, on the day this is filmed, we're reshooting our final scene, and then we're wrapping up. So for those fans of the Zicast will be able to keep up with it. Right.
Yeah. It's very cool. And I think Ari knows a lot about filmmaking, so he'll get it out for sure, because we've had some issues in the past getting films released. Casey's nodding her head violently. But yeah, it should be cool. I'm excited to see it.
And Ari would be great for this podcast as well.
Get him on here. Get him talking about any movie ever.
Yeah.
And he'll talk your ear off for an hour and a half.
Or his LA experiences. Some things like just hanging around them on the QFS fall production. He's just casually talking about meeting Steven Spielberg, and I just like snap my head over. I'm like, what? I'm like, what?
Yeah, Ari is a very casual guy. He never like, he always downplays everything. So that day after, I was like, because I knew he was going to some DGA thing, and he didn't tell me that much about it. But I had gotten home from work late that night, so I woke up and I was like, oh, how was the DGA thing? He's like, yeah, it was cool. I met Spielberg. And I'm like, go back. What? Say that again? But yeah, he met. I remember he told me that, and then a few nights later he calls me while I'm on the metro, and I'm like, all right, what's up on my way home? And he's like, I just met Rivers Cuomo from Weezer. And I'm like, why are you more excited about Rivers Cuomo than Steven Spielberg? But yeah,
that's just
how he is.
Yeah. So now to kind of move on, we have some more kind of personal topics. Like, what are some things that people might not know about you? Saving the best for last.
Oh yeah, the one thing. No. So I already mentioned I'm really into like nature and hiking and all that. I'm just really into exercise in general. Sorry, I'm swiveling my chair. I keep trying to stop myself. I'm a spin instructor on campus. So we were talking about this before. That is my kind of biggest passion outside of, my industry. Of course, I'm an artist first, and then, I have my other stuff, but I'm super, super into health and wellness, specifically targeted at women, because in everything I do, I think, I remember I did a whole speech about this last year. I feel like my identity comes into play whatever I'm producing. So a lot of my work is about like female representation. I was the vice president of Women in Film last year. And a lot of stuff I do revolves around like the female experience. So women's wellness is something that I am super, super passionate about, just from my own experience and then also hearing it from other people. So I had my own like crazy, weird health and fitness journey. But coming into college, I wasn't super into exercise. I kind of hated it. But I'm like, it's a good stress relief. I should just go my first week, figure out something. Because I'm like, I need something that's going to help me de-stress. And I decided, I'm like, I'll take the shuttle up to York Hill. And I'm like, oh, I'll take a spin class. And that first week, I just like fell in love with it. It kicked my butt because I was like so out of shape. But I'm like, this is something I'm totally obsessed with because it's all high energy and I'm a very high energy person and I need that outlet to just like exert all of that. So I'm actually, after this podcast, I'm going to book it over to the gym and teach class. But yeah, that's something I'm super, super into. And it's not something that I usually say right off the bat unless someone's like, I'm going to the gym. And I'm like, I'll come with you. But yeah, I love working out. It's really like one of my favorite hobbies, I guess. I try to get to the gym as much as I can. It's been tough this semester, obviously. But over the summer, I was working at a gym back home, and it was like I pretty much lived there. If I wasn't at my internship, I was at the gym. My parents are like, I never see you. Where are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm either in Boston or I'm 5 minutes away. But yeah.
And that's just all around incredible. And I'm very much I've become a kind of gym rat myself.
Yeah.
I told you I go every morning.
Yeah.
And it's just, we have really nice gyms here, and
We do.
and it's just like borderline addicting to go.
No, it really is. Yeah, that's how we started talking too, because I was like, oh, I teach, and you're like, oh, I go in the mornings, and I'm like, I go at night. But
And
of course,
both work well.
Yeah.
Like, just mornings, it's just like if I don't go in the morning, odds are I won't end up going at all.
exactly.
So that's why I feel like I wake up, I get dressed, go.
That's good. I want to do that so bad, but it's so hard for me. I'm not a morning person at all, but I'm up late, so I'm like, if I'm out of class at 9:15, I'll just go to the gym. But yeah, it is addicting. It definitely is, but it's also so good for, I guess, like
Everything.
college students, because not only does it help you develop a healthy routine into your 20s, 30s, 40s, like this is the time to do that, but also, like I said, not even for like personal aesthetic reasons or like health reasons. It's such a good stress reliever. Like just going and there are so many aspects that you can, try. Like if you're not a high intensity person like I am, you can go in and we have meditation classes, we have yoga classes. I'm going to one tonight to try to like balance out the energy. That's another thing. I'm very into like energy and spiritualism and
Zen.
Yeah, very. I wish I was more Zen. I'm trying to get there.
Okay.
Hence why I'm doing yoga.
Manifesting. Another thing you're manifesting here.
Oh yeah, manifestation. I'm surprised I don't have any crystals on me right now. I usually have a few at least, but yeah, it's just something.
And it's great that you're motivating others to do the same and through these classes.
Yeah, I try. And I think that's why I was so interested in becoming an instructor myself, because it's the one, I was having this conversation with someone a few weeks ago, it's the one kind of fitness instructor category where you're doing as much work as your participants. So other instructors, it's like, okay, like give me 20 push-ups, but now it's like okay, do this on the bike while I also do this on the bike. And a lot of it is about like being supportive and being energetic, and that's just something I've always been drawn to doing. So doing that in a gym setting where I'm also getting something out of it is just it's very beneficial both ways.
Yeah, and then through that, in that way, you get to lead by example.
Exactly.
Which is an incredible thing. So now to ask you something that's a bit more loaded, what would you like to do after school? Like your hopes and dreams.
Oh man, yeah, super loaded. There are so many avenues that I could take that I'm interested in, because I really say as long as I'm in the industry, I'll be happy. Happiness is the goal. As long as I'm happy in whatever I'm doing it right. But I've always been interested in documentary work, which is why I took that internship in LA. That's something I really want to pursue. But if not that, I love editing. I'm kind of getting into producing a little bit. But like I said, as long as I'm doing something within the industry, whether it be film or music, television, like, I will be totally happy.
And I get a sense that, sort of like me, you're more of a verb than a noun.
Yeah.
That you're more numerous things than one thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. More of a verb than a noun. I like that.
So I can very much see that for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And very much believe that you will succeed.
Thank you.
judging
You
by
too.
Your track record here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, I mean, you just got here and you hit the ground running, so I know it's just gonna keep building in your next few years.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. So am I. So kind of the way I kind of like to round these out, like I did with my my buddy Jeff Fish, is to ask you your favorite films.
Oh man, I could give you my Letterboxd top 4. I know Letterboxd is like my go-to. So right now in my number 1 category, and I don't think this is ever going to change, is The Outsiders, directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes.
Dare I say better than The Godfather? Maybe. Casey's giving me the head nod. I love that movie, mostly because that's like my favorite book also. You know, everyone reads it in 7th grade, and I probably have like 3 copies at my house because I was just like obsessed with it. I would read it like every day. I could probably quote the movie like front to back. So that's definitely my number 1. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is another one. Again, I keep talking about Ari Menes, but he introduces me to a lot of movies. That's an Ari Menes watch right there. We actually had a really cool experience. We watched it. We had already both seen it before, but we watched it together it's called Secret Movie Club. So once you're out in LA, look up Secret Movie Club. It's in like this back alley up an apartment complex, and it's super sketchy. And then once you get in there, it's like this beautiful library, and there's like a film projector, and there's like a coffee bar, and it's a tiny little place, but we watched it there. That and Moonlight. It was a double feature, which was awesome. Dazed and Confused, because of course, like it just fits my personality very well. And then the last one, it's kind of a toss-up. Right now I have it as Almost Famous because, again, 70s music, something I love. But I also just watched Raw for the first time because it was like a horror. I'm taking a horror class, and I was obsessed with that movie. It's very strange. It's a little bit gory and gross. But something about it just worked for me. So I was like, I really like that one right now. And Kill Bill. So top 4 became a top 6. But
I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch. But yeah.
Yeah. So I always say that what art people enjoy says a lot about them, and
I think so too.
now I have a couple more movies to watch.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like my whole personality is like, okay, you got the 70s movies, and then you got like the weird French films in there, and then you have like that's actually pretty much it. 70s, and I'm not French, but all the French films for some reason they work for me.
Whatever works.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So Grace, would you like to talk about anything else or add anything else?
I think that covered it. I don't know. I guess like I feel like I have to give someone like advice or something, like a final
profound
some profound
monologue
piece of wisdom. Nothing really. If you're in the industry or you're interested in the industry, get involved in whatever way you can. Do things that scare you. That is probably the best piece of advice that I got from Andreas, actually, because I was talking about, this is a good story, so I'll leave off on that. Awesome. I'm doing my senior capstone right now, and I am a producer on that, and it was kind of the last thing I wanted to do, because I was like, I am so scared of producing. I just know it's a lot of money and numbers, and those are the 2 things that I am so, like, totally not good at. So I was talking to Andreas, because he is a producer, and I'm like, I just don't know what to do because I'm producing, and I'm so scared, and I don't know what to expect. And he's like, I'm like, should I take this route, or should I try to go off on my own and try to do something completely different that I'm more comfortable with? And he was like, no, take the producer role, because that scares you. And in this industry, you have to do things that scare you. So whether that be flying across the country for a few months, or, submitting your piece in festivals if you're not totally confident, or taking on a role that you know nothing about, as long as it's, if it scares you, that probably means it's a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, cool. That's what I'll end off on.
An incredible way to end it.
Thank you.
That's kind of been my own motto since coming here.
Yeah.
Do the things that scare you because they will bring you the best results.
Exactly. Yeah. You learn the most from the things that you're afraid of.
Definitely.
But yeah.
So thank you so much, Grace, for coming on.
Yeah,
This
no
was
problem.
an absolutely incredible interview.
Yeah, this was so fun. I'm never the one getting interviewed. I'm usually the one doing the interview, so it was very different. But
Nice to be on the other end of the table. And
oh yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is Ryan Ziaks from the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off, and thank you so much for watching. Bye, everyone.